Gentlemen, welcome to the Be the Man podcast. I'm your host, Greg Denning, the creator and coach of the Be the Man Masterclass and Tribe. And fellas, man, if you're not in the tribe already, I hope you will join us. Get in this brotherhood, this band of brothers of great men who are striving to be our absolute best selves and to cheer each other on and support each other. It is awesome. It is absolutely awesome. Hey, fellas, just a quick reminder, if you have not subscribed to this podcast, please do so. And you're free to leave a review as well, up to 5 stars, and share this with friends, family, and colleagues so we can get this message out here. Today's guest is Matt Schneider, and Matt is a stud and a new friend of mine. He is one of the coaches and trainers with the project, and actually he's an entrepreneur and a businessman, and has his hands in several different things. He's doing some coaching and training and sales. He's got software stuff going on. He's got a lot of great stuff going on, but the biggest inspiration that I took away was how drastic the changes and how quickly it happened for him. You're going to love his story. His story is both instructive and inspiring of what can happen with just some real grit and hard work and leveling up. And we talk about, dropping the ego and pulling off the mask and taking just a raw look at yourself and leveling up in your leadership and your skills so that when opportunities appear, you're ready to take advantage of them. And how quickly, in a matter of just a few years, you can totally transform your life and jump into big opportunities and responsibilities for that matter, shoulder that stuff and really create some change in your life. And we go through his story and how he started in a rough spot and was totally unprepared, and how he built this life. And we talk about marriage and parenting and life and family and all that good stuff. You're going to love this episode. So dive in, gentlemen. Let's get started. All right, Matt, thanks for being here, brother. I know you've got a lot to share from you got your hands in all kinds of things and got a background and a lot to share with all the work you're doing in from business to fitness to men and boys, all kinds of stuff. So, but let's start. Just give us a little bit of your background. Tell us your story and then how you got into this. Like, I don't know, again, you're a man on a mission here, and you got a lot of things going on. So give us your background on your story.
Yeah, man, you bet. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and chat with you and hopefully provide some value to your listeners. But so first and foremost, I'm a husband and father. That goes on the top of my resume each time I introduce myself. But been married for 16 years, known my wife for almost 20. I have a 13-year-old son who's just started 7th grade the other day. And
nice.
And so I'm very blessed when it comes to the family. I've got a fantastic wife, very supportive, and really makes a lot of what I do very possible. As far as origin goes, I guess it just depends on how far you want to back up. It is very relevant that I come from a background where my mom is currently on her 9th divorce. And
my mom's on her 6th, so we got some parallel there.
I've yet to meet anybody who's actually been able to beat that record. I've met one person who matched it, but I've never met anybody that beat it. And so, wow. A revolving door of men that coming and going my whole childhood and adolescence and younger years really made the focus of my mom's attention on relationships that were in the honeymoon stage that quickly went into the failing stages, and then it was a rinse and repeat. Not to say that she didn't absolutely love and cherish her 5 kids. She absolutely did, but it's relevant because of the cycle that I ended up breaking later on, which is why I start with being married for 16 and together for 20.
Same, man. That's cool, brother. And because what you're saying is that in between was a honeymoon stage, and then it ended up being a lot of fighting, misery, and tears. And then starting over. And that's what I saw on and on and on. And when I moved out at 16, and I was like, I'm stopping this crap. Like, I will not carry on this problem. So that's awesome that's kind of a background you come from. To prioritize marriage.
Yeah, man. Because at some point I determined that that was not the life I wanted to lead, because there was no real happiness and fulfillment there. And because of the amount of animosity and in the earlier years for her first several husbands, they were just the wrong kind of guy altogether. And my mom comes from her own background, and we could save that conversation for a different podcast, but she was a product of the environment that she was raised in. She just
Right.
didn't break the cycle.
Yep.
And so I made a determination at some point that I wasn't going to repeat it, and I haven't, and I'm very proud of that. So I got into law enforcement when I was 21. I was very ill prepared for that stage of my life. As you can imagine with my background. The funny quick story is when I started college. So basically, I knew a guy who was a cop. He took me on a ride along, and I'm 20 years old, and I think, hey, this is a pretty cool profession. Like these guys are out there, and they're that thin blue line. They're the element between the good and the evil, and so I thought this might be something I want to do. So growing up in eastern Idaho, in Idaho Falls, there was a 9-month program down in Pocatello, which is about 50 miles south of Idaho Falls, and it's Idaho State University. And so I found this program, and what it did was it made you certifiable. So if you went to the program and you passed it, then agencies that wanted to pick you up, they wouldn't need to send you to the academy later on. And so you got certified in both detention if to work in the jail, and then patrol to work on the road. So I found this program. I set myself up for it. I said, let me see what this is all about, and maybe it is a profession I want to jump into. So I registered for college, and I started attending class. I'm about 2 weeks into it, and Greg, I get a call from the registrar's office, and they say, "Hey, this is Matt Schneider." I said, "Yeah, this is Matt." And they said, "Hey, quick question for you, but how is it that you plan to pay for your college? How do you plan on paying for your tuition? Because we have nothing on file for you in regards to scholarships or tuition or student loans or anything." And I said, well, first of all, are you meaning to tell me that college actually costs money?
Nice.
So here I am. I'm 19, 20 years old, and as dumb as it sounds, that was my reality. My mom was so wrapped up in this. If it gives you any kind of idea of how ill prepared myself and siblings were, as an adult, I did not know college costs money. So I go down, I fill out some emergency student loans. That all goes through. I finish the program, and I determined, yeah, this is definitely a path I don't want to go down. But I wasn't done with school yet. I wanted to continue with my education, so I moved to Boise, and that's on the western part of the state capital of Idaho. And I started attending classes at Boise State University. Got my degree in psychology. Met my wife along the way,
Nice.
or who would become my wife. She just had to have me, Greg. She just had to have me when she saw me. It is a story I tell. It's not the story she tells, and she tells the true story. But then I got into law enforcement in 2006. Did a year in the jail. Then I went out to patrol, and I did that for several years. I ended up going on to the SWAT team, and spent 5 years on the entry team, a couple of years with the U.S. Marshals Office fugitive team. And then in 2013, I became an accidental entrepreneur. So my grandmother, my mom's mother, she and her brother, in the early 40s, late 30s, they had opened up a sporting goods store in San Francisco. And it was right on Market Street. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but Market Street's in a pretty optimal spot for business down in San Francisco. And a large hotel chain approached the family and asked to buy they didn't want the business, but they wanted the location.
Right.
So a deal was struck. My mom came into a pretty sizable amount of money as a result. And because my grandmother had passed away, and so her 50% got split up amongst my mom and her two siblings. And my mom said, "Hey, look, I don't know what to do with this money, but I'd like to invest it in you because you're a pretty safe bet." And I had never really thought much about being an entrepreneur prior to that point, but all of a sudden I found myself with an opportunity, and so I started thinking, what could I bring to the market? And that led me to opening up Forward Movement Training, which was a 30,000 square foot in, 30,000 square foot out, reality-based training facility where we train civilians, law enforcement, military, on all things weapons and tactics, and just had an absolute kick in the pants in regards to the model itself. The first couple of years were just absolutely awful as an entrepreneur because I didn't know. I was a fish out of water. Yep. I knew a lot about tactics. I knew a lot about that world. I had a lot of contacts in that world. And so getting business wasn't necessarily that challenging, but what was challenging was leading a team. So after a couple of years of really just struggling and going through the process of all the pains of working way more hours than I'd ever had before for way less money than I ever had before. I hired my first coach and mentor, and that's where I started down the process back in 2016 of going through personal and professional development and understanding what that meant. So if you kind of fast forward through time, we sold the company in 2019. I met Bedros Keuilian, who some of your listeners may know because he's widely referenced as the Tony Robbins of the fitness industry. Very well known, very seasoned guy, and a absolute kind of mentor to a lot of people in that space. He owns Fit Body Boot Camp as a franchise, brought me down to Southern California as the executive director of operations, where I oversaw the operations, compliance, sales, and marketing sides of the franchise. So, went down right before COVID.
And that was for the Fit Body Boot Camp side. So you got your business up and going, sold it, and then went to kind of oversee that side of his Fit Body Boot Camp. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So Bedros and I had met a couple years prior, and we think and see the world very similarly. Okay. And so that led to an opportunity when I sold the company. I reached out to him and say, I'm open to the next opportunity and chapter. And that led to him bringing me down. And then I found myself in franchising, but it was really from more of a leadership standpoint. Yep. At that point, I've really been going down the path of that personal and professional development. And Bedros was once where I was at that time, and was then where I wanted to be. Yep. So he was several stages ahead of me, and in all kinds of different areas in his successes in business, in his reputation, and his adversity he had overcome, the relationships that he had with his family and with others. And so I went down there very quickly. Myself, Ray Cash Care, former Navy SEAL, as is his formal title, by the way, came into the picture. Steve Eckert, former Marine, moved from New York to Southern California, and Aaron Alejandrino had recently been moved from Scottsdale, Arizona to Southern California to work with Bedros on the supplement company side. We all kind of came in the picture right as I moved down there. And because of our backgrounds, we started having a discussion about what is now the project. So I'm one of the co-founders of the project, which is a 75-hour, very immersive, very intense, very manufactured adversity driven development program. I'm one of the co-founders of the Squire program, which is a father-son development program, kind of a rite of passage for young men. And my current role is the executive vice president of FitPro Tracker, which is a global fitness software. It's a CRM, it's the billing, communications, and app sides of the fitness industry.
And is that a part of that conglomerate, or is this a separate thing?
Separate, yeah. Separate. So I was approached by them just over a year ago to come and join the team as the EVP, and it's a company that Bedros has some equity in, and so he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I think this would be a great opportunity for you. You should take a look at it. They need what you have to offer, and they're willing to give you some equity in the deal." And so I don't know, much about software or SaaS as a whole, or at least I didn't then. But I was being brought in again for leadership. I'd figured out years before how to start effectively leading myself, which then allowed me to start effectively leading other people, which is what they were attracted to.
If I can just point out the obvious here, like that's not that many years where you're starting and like kind of floundering, and all of a sudden opportunities are just hitting.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. I look back and to that point, Greg, is a year and a half ago, I started coaching others. So I've got a entrepreneurial mentorship and coaching program similar to yours. And as I look back and where I've come in such a short period of time, it's almost I almost don't even recognize that person, and I certainly don't recognize my circumstances. It's pretty incredible how much can happen so quickly with the right kind of people in your proximity, with the right kind of intentionality, the right kind of discipline, and accountability, and just having high standards of expectations of myself and the others that I allow to be in my circle. It's incredible what can happen.
Yes, man. again, emphasizing that to anyone listening, like wherever you're at in your life, I've seen this, you've seen it, like wherever you're at, if you start making some big changes from the inside out, yeah, you can totally transform your whole outside world where
There's no
it's
other
almost
option.
not recognizable
Yeah.
anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't have imagined this.
Yeah. Yeah. It must start from the inside out.
Yeah.
It must. It can't. Anything else is just fraudulent.
Yeah.
Right. It's do as I say, not as I do.
Yep.
I tried doing that. I tried the fake it till you make it, and it just does not work. It has to start from the inside out, and then it's once that happens, that transformation happens. That's when you have something to offer others that can improve their circumstances.
Yes. So you now get to help men do this, and you've been through that. And I'm sure man, you're the kind of guy like him. Like there's never a graduation from education, right? There's never like this time where you level off. It's like, no, we keep leveling up. So where would you say men need to start? Like on this inside job? Like where do we start? Where have you seen that? Like, you know what? And maybe there's no exact starting point because it's so unique to the individual, but have you noticed something? You said like, where's the place to begin the transformation, the change from the inside out?
So based on my own circumstance, and then all the, we have, I think we're getting close to 200 graduates of the project now. Of all the men that I interact with, I think the common thread is A, dropping the ego, and B, pulling the mask off. Drop the ego, take off the mask, and be willing to take a raw look at yourself, and really start to understand that leadership is always the problem. It is always the solution.
Yeah.
And ego kills so many things. Ego kills deals, it kills relationships, it kills opportunities, it kills people, right? Yeah. Ego, I think, is probably the number one thing where guys, they want to live behind this facade, and they rather than be vulnerable, and rather than seek help to shine light on their blind spots and be called out and held accountable for the areas that they're not not living up to their fullest potential, or they're lacking integrity, and rather just go through that process, because it is a painful process, right? When to really just take a raw look at yourself. Guys hide behind an ego, they hide behind a front, and they walk around with a mask on, and they try to pretend that there's something that they're not, and they try to put out to the world that they're achieving things that they're not, and that they're doing things that they're not, and that is so taxing of energy, of mental bandwidth, and then
potential. Man, you leave your potential sitting on the table because you're so determined. You're so desperate to put on an appearance.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And a lot of guys are good at it too. Yeah. Great. They're great at putting on this front. They're great at convincing the world that they are the thing that they're pretending to be. Yep. The problem is A, they know they're not. Yep. They know that they're not that real thing. And so that eats away at them.
Kills them from the inside out.
Their family knows, their wife knows. Yep. They become passive aggressive with the people that they're supposed to love and cherish the most, but yet those people get the worst of them because they're the ones that know the truth, and they're not tricking anybody. Their kids get the worst of it, right? Yeah. So the people that should get the best of us get the worst of us when we're a fraud, and when we lack integrity with ourselves, even if the rest of the world believes what they're being spoon-fed.
Yes. And every time we live below what we know we're capable of, it just is a train wreck on the inside. It undermines the confidence, esteem, and all of that. And then you're spot on, right? The people closest to us, they know, they see through it. Mm-hmm. And so then you have to deal with that on top of it, that your wife's disappointed in you and your kids are disappointed. That's the recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on maybe why. One thing that I kind of discovered working with so many good men is, yes, as men, we're afraid of failure, but what came out in so many discussions was how afraid we are of looking like a failure. Mm-hmm. how like, yeah, I'm afraid of failure, but if no one was watching, yeah, I'd try it. But if people are going to see me and say like, hi, I told you or whatever, so for some reason that scares the crap out of us.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, let me see if I can find this picture real quick that I took. It might be on my iPad. Give me a second because have you ever heard of an Enneagram?
Mm-hmm.
So I took an Enneagram recently. My executive assistant, Bridget, actually brought it to my attention. She had taken it with her husband. She said when I brought her on board, she recommended that I take it as well so that we could learn more about each other.
Very cool.
And there was three things um, here it is, that the gal Lori, who basically walks you through the process and helps you understand the results. She said each personality has three fears that we all have and we all carry, and all of our actions and all of our decision making is driven to not let these fears become reality. And so the three fears for me is number one is I am powerless. So everything that I do, every decision I make, is to not be perceived powerless, and to be perceived as powerful, right? And there's as Lori says, there's light and shadows to everything. So there's a lot of power to being powerful, but there's a lot of shadows to it as well, right? So understanding that is critical. Thing number two is I'm ashamed of my weaknesses. So the other thing I'm desperately afraid of is to be weak. And so everything that I do is to not be weak. And then the third thing is I have the fear of being vulnerable, right? And so how I communicate and what I communicate and the style I communicate is based on this fear of being perceived as vulnerable. And it's a fascinating thing. If your listeners have never taken an Enneagram, there's one thing that I could stress as an action item is to do that and do it with your spouse or significant others that you work very closely with. My wife just went through it, and it's very helpful to understand yourself better. But it's also very, very helpful to understand the people you're closest with, how they think and how they see the world, and the things that they're most afraid of that drive their decision making and their behaviors and their thought processes.
It's so true because Rachel and I did that as well, and it just unlocks so much to understand yourself better and understand your spouse.
Yeah.
Those three fears, man. I know it's per personality, but you just reading those, like, I think most men can relate to those three.
Yeah, very well could.
That just stands out right there. Like, oh yeah, that just comes up on the radar, and how fear is such a driving factor.
Yeah.
In all
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, and fear is a very healthy thing too, if it's channeled the right way, right? Anger and rage can be a very healthy thing if it's channeled the right way. The project, our crest is a skull with two axes through it in a battle helmet. And the reason for that is the skull reminds us that we're immortal, that we will die. So to live life with urgency. One axe is to remind us that we build. But what we build is very important. We can build businesses, we can build families, we can build relationships, we can build wealth, we can build opportunity and legacy. But the other axe is that we can destroy, and be very careful what we destroy, right? Because we can destroy relationships, we can destroy opportunity, we can destroy wealth, we can destroy legacy. And so what we build and what we destroy is very important on this short time that we have in this world. And the helmet just reminds us that we're warriors. And so, when it comes to these fears, the fact that we know that we're supposed to be the protector and we know that we're supposed to be the provider, it's innate in us. That's, we come from very tribal beginnings, right? This hunting, gathering element of our ancestry, and it's woven into our DNA.
Right.
And so as a man, we know that we're supposed to be the protector. We know that we're supposed to be the provider. And that protection and that, what we're providing is, we're supposed to be providing security, financial security and relational security and physical security, and providing, opportunities for time freedom and money freedom and experiences
and opportunity.
It's the fear of not being able to do and achieve what we were designed to do, what we are built to do and to provide. I think probably all men do fear very similar things, or at least they shouldn't. If they shouldn't, then that's probably a different conversation.
Yep. Agreed, man. So insightful. So insightful. So, well, and so you hit on a couple of main things there. I also want to ask, like, in your work with so many different individuals and individuals from all kinds of backgrounds. You got men coming in with tremendous wealth and success in one area or in the other, and across industries and fields. Like, what else besides what we've already mentioned? What else are you seeing that's not working, and what is working? And I think maybe there's some insight there in that connection. But what are you seeing, like, major problems they're relevant right now?
You know, Jocko Willink, he put out that book, Extreme Ownership. I think there's probably
Awesome
one
book.
thing that is missing are people willing to take ownership of their actions. People who don't want to accept the fact that every single one of us, you, me, and everybody else, we always maintain the power and control to change our circumstances,
Yes.
as long as we are willing to be accountable for the decision making and actions that we put forward. And I see too many people pointing the finger, but the inherent problem with that is that when you're pointing the finger at other people or other circumstances, you're giving them the pen to write the story of your life, right? You're telling them that they have the responsibility to dictate what you do or don't do. And I think that's tragic. I think that's one of the main problems that I see is just this total lack of accountability and this total willingness to blame others for their reality, whatever their circumstances are.
Yep. So true. Every time we do that, every time we blame, every time we excuse or justify or rationalize, we're taking our power and handing it over.
Yeah.
Well, or setting it down because nobody else cares about you or your dream. Honestly, at the end of the day, nobody's going to pick up your power and do it for you as
Yeah.
much
I
as you
mean,
hope.
I tell people, you either have a seat at the table or you're on the menu. So, you're in life, if you don't think that a competitor would take you out, if you don't think that, look, there's a lot of guys, this whole dad bod thing is like a thing, right? Where guys want to try to convince themselves that chicks are attracted to dad bods. They're not. They're attracted to, they're attracted to guys who take care of themselves. They're attracted to guys that take care of their mind, their bodies, their finances, their circumstances, that create opportunity. And the stories that a lot of these guys are telling themselves, and by the way, I speak from a guy as a guy, and I don't try to pretend to know the psyche of a female. And so a lot of what I come from is it may be universal truths. Your female listeners can determine whether or not this is applicable to them or not. But certainly there's a lot of universal truths within leadership. But coming from a guy's standpoint is there's if you're thinking that competitors won't come in and take what you have, and you think that you can stand idle and that your wife or significant other is not going to have needs that go unmet in whatever fashion, you're fooling yourself. Right? Our wives, they have expectations of us, and if those expectations are greater than the expectations that we have of ourselves, then problems start to get introduced. Right? And you start living lives that are two ships passing at night. And again, it comes back to accountability. It comes back to ownership and taking that pen back, and not just being, in the game of life, Gray. It's not just about being in the bleachers and watching it happen, right? It's not even about being on the sidelines and being somewhat of a participant, having minimal kind of, fading in and out of what's happening on the field. It's actually getting on the field and interacting and making a difference. It's taking control and running the plays and moving the ball down the field and scoring the touchdowns, right? It's getting onto the field. And so I would love to see more men take control of their lives, not be on the menu in their health, their wealth, their finances, and relationships, and get a seat at the table, but also understand you've got to earn that seat. Like you want to sit at my table, people want to sit at your table, they've got to earn that seat. You don't just get an opportunity. There's not just an empty chair there. That chair is filled by somebody else who wants it more than you do.
Exactly. Oh, Matt, it's awesome, man. Another way that I've said this before, kind of visualized, is like, if you're not setting goals, other people, it doesn't even have to be a competitor, other people will use you for their goals.
Sure.
Like if you're not filling your schedule, other people will fill it. They'll just jump
Yeah.
right in, whether it's from your email box or notifications, whatever. Somebody else fill your schedule for you. If you don't have a plan, somebody else is going to fit you right into theirs.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing, man. You got like, and it's intimidating, right? I remember feeling this. I'm sure you do too. Like the intimidation of getting out of the bleachers and getting onto the field and picking up the ball and trying to make a play. Yeah, well, what if I mess up?
Yeah.
Which you will.
Yeah.
You will screw up.
You
You
absolutely
will ball in your face.
Part of the process.
Yeah, and you're gonna own it, and people are gonna watch, and there's gonna be a bunch of "I told you so's." But what's the alternative?
Sure.
The alternative is staying in the bleachers, man. It's terrible. And letting somebody else write your story.
Yeah, it's mediocrity. The alternative is not being better a year from now than we are right now, right? And that's tragic. It's, a year is going to come, and for those that stand on the bleachers or sit on the bleachers or stand on the sidelines, 1 year from now, in their health, wealth, and relationships, they're not going to be much better off. And that's a tragic thing to me, because of we all have a legacy, one way or the other, a good one or a bad one. We all are leaving a footprint on this world, whether it's a big one or small one, and we all will die a physical death. Now, we all will die two deaths, and some people don't ever experience the second one, but the second one is the last time anybody ever utters your name, and the last time anybody ever understands you are on this earth, right? There's family members that I carry their DNA, and I would never know they even existed ever. And that's, you're only talking about 2 generations away. Like I could not tell you my great grandparents' name. Yep. Now, maybe that's because of the background I came in, and I had so many, guys coming and going, that my family history is elusive to me. But I would venture to say that most people start to really lose track of their great grandparents, and certainly their great great parents, right? So, not dying that second death prematurely is all about the legacy that is left. It's all about the number of lives you impacted, and the amount of charity you gave, and the amount of people you helped, and the amount of value you delivered, right? It's not about the amount of money that's in the bank account, although money is a vehicle to be able to make a lot of things happen. So they go hand in hand. But yeah, you've got to get off the bleachers. You've got to get onto the field. You've got to be willing to make the mistakes. You got to be vulnerable. That's tough for a lot of guys. You got to be vulnerable, but at the same time, understand that without adversity, there's no growth. Yep. Right? Without the challenges that come with getting outside your comfort zone, there's no development there.
Yes, man. Seems to me, brother, the absolute guarantee to be forgotten is just to live a mediocre existence.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Just coast along, because nobody ever coasted to the top. You just drift, and you'll be forgotten, because there's nothing there worth remembering. Which, I'm with you, man. I think everyone listening and all of us have the opportunity to strategically and intentionally design a legacy that lasts.
Yeah. And it is up to us. It really is. I mean, success will not fall in our lap. It must be created. Success favors the bold. It favors the action takers. It favors the prepared. And success is compounding in nature, right? Yep. Every single day we're stacking 1 or 2 things, wins or losses. Yep. And at the end of the day, the goal is to stack more wins and losses. And at the end of the week, more wins and losses. At the end of the month and year, it's more wins and losses. And that's how you gain momentum. And once that momentum's gained, I mean, we talked earlier, look at how far I've come, and I almost don't recognize it was the intentionality of first starting with dropping the ego, dropping the mask, willing to take feedback from others who were in a better place than I was, and make the investments in time and energy and money to go out and get into the circles of other people that could help me. And then when I got the feedback, not point blame, not try to rationalize it off or talk around it, but just to accept it and execute on it, and then watch what happens.
Love it. This is actually a perfect time right there. Let's talk about maybe some mistakes or failures. I don't know. I'm sure there's a few that come to mind, because as you're chasing greatness, as you're, sticking your neck out there and taking some risk, there's gonna be some failures and mistakes and some big lessons. Are there any in your journey that come to mind that could be instructive for all of us?
Oh yeah, dude. So I think the most monumental ones came the first couple of years when I owned the company back in 2013, 2014, 2015. Um, when I was breaking promises to myself. So I was trying to take that fake it till you make it approach, and I was telling myself I was going to eat better when ultimately I drive through Taco Bell or grab McDonald's. I tell myself I was going to work out X days a week, and I would do a fraction of that if any of them. I tell myself I was going to make a certain number of sales calls, or I was going to do this and this, and I would make all these commitments to myself that ultimately I wasn't keeping. And it wasn't that I couldn't keep them. It was just that I wasn't disciplined enough to keep them, or I was unwilling to keep them, or I would make excuses for not keeping them. And then I just started feeling this total fraud. And then I would insulate myself and isolate myself from the rest of the world by self-sabotage. And it was like this crumbling that was happening, because I knew that although I was telling the world that owning a business was great and that being an entrepreneur was great and that my relationship was great, I knew that my finances were shit. My credit score went from the high 700s down to Greg, I don't even know how low it went, but it had to have been like in the fours. It maybe lower. I don't know.
Going negative.
Oh, dude, probably negative. It was just, yeah, it just nosedived. And I was, having conversations with my wife about, do we separate? Like, is this thing going to work out?
Wow. Because it starts to hit everything. Everything affects everything.
Absolutely. I mean, but the rest of the world would see it different. Anybody who asked, life was great, right? And that was the challenge behind it. So, one of the major lessons learned, and one of the major things I would impress upon any of your listeners and every person I come in contact with, all of my coaching clients, all the project candidates, is don't be a fraud.
Yeah.
You don't try to be something that you're not, and start by only making commitments to yourself that you will keep.
Yep.
Never make a commitment to yourself that you're either unwilling to keep or you're unable to keep. Because when you start breaking those promises to yourself, then the credibility that we have with ourselves starts to erode.
Yes.
And then we're not being authentically who we are meant to be, and we're not presenting ourselves to the world, unless you're walking around just telling everybody like I'm a shit show, like I've just I break promises, I have no integrity, which people don't do, right? And so it goes back to all the energy that it takes to be a fraud, and how it does have this ripple effect into the most important relationships of your life. And again, that I would say I would start there is with credibility with ourselves. Huge. and then establishing credibility with ourselves, and start the process and the journey with that, and then do the things that you say you're going to do. Yep. Be the places you say you're going to be there, and be there for the people, be there for yourselves. Don't tell your spouse or significant other or kids that you're going to do something you're not going to do. Yep. Because nobody will take you seriously if you have a reputation of breaking promises, including yourself. You won't take yourself seriously.
Yep. And they can't trust you, and you can't trust yourself, because trust is built on that. So every time, even with little things of like, hey, I'm going to get up, and then you hit the snooze button 3 times.
Yeah.
Or man, I'm going to hit that today, and you don't. Or I just keep thinking, I hear it all the time. People are funny with expediency. They're like, well, I'm not going to eat crap. And then they're like, oh, I'm hungry. So they stop and grab some trash.
Yeah.
Like, well, what happened to that? Like, well, I was hungry. Well, nobody cares if you're hungry, man. Live by your principles, not your expediency. Yeah. But it's little things like that, man. And you're spot on, where it undermines trust. And if you don't trust yourself, it radiates from you.
Yeah.
And so then other people don't trust you either. And now you're operating from the state, and you maybe can't even articulate it on either side, but it's just not working.
Right. And that's a great point that you bring up, because when things really started to change for me, Greg, was when I established non-negotiable core values for myself.
Yes.
And I was living a life without core values, so I had no real direction. I had no real path. I was just kind of it was a groundhog day for me. I would get up, I would do the things, and maybe I would win some, maybe I would lose some, but there was no real direction. It wasn't even about goal setting. It was just I didn't have a North Star for myself. And so when I set my core values, which by the way is integrity in everything, it is burn the boats, is have a high give a shit factor, and it is let's see, high give a shit factor, burn the boats, integrity in everything, and why am I forgetting the fourth one? I'm on the spot. I don't remember.
It'll come back to you as soon as you keep going.
It will be. It will. It will. It will. But you have to have them, right? You have to. They have to be non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And they all your decisions have to come from them, and they can't be something that you're like, oh yes and no, and here's I'll make this decision this day, and then on this day, and so that would be the other thing I would say is to have core values for yourself, have core values for your family, and then don't break them. And under any circumstance, don't break them.
As a side benefit of what you just described, it makes decision making so much easier, right? Because 100%. You're like, I have core values, I have non-negotiables. So you come to a crossroads, any crossroads, and it's easy. You just grab your decision and say, well, this fit. And if it doesn't, it's out. If it does, okay, let's evaluate it. But so many people is wishy-washy. The wind comes in, the waves come in, whatever's happening, like, oh, and then we hear these guys saying, well, man, life got in the way. Like, man, life doesn't get in the way of non-negotiables.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And only if you allow it to, only if you tell yourself it's a non-negotiable when it's not.
Yep.
The fourth one is emotionally and physically disciplined. Perfect. By the way, beautiful. Emotionally, physically disciplined.
Love it.
So yeah, and that so when I established that would be I think when things really started to change for me. I think is really something where not enough people have, and if they did, they would experience the benefits from it.
Big time. How can I ask, how did that translate for you into the day-to-day, week-to-week? Like, what were the habits, rituals, routines? What are the patterns? Because you got your hands in all kinds of businesses. You have a family. You're in jujitsu and all kinds of other stuff, and running and gunning and playing with awesome toys.
Yeah.
Like, how do you? Because this comes up a lot, and people are like, "Well, how do I do it all? And how do I do it well?" In my experience, I've observed, like, for a lot of men, it's good at home or it's good at work, but rarely both.
Yeah.
So how do you take those core values and translate them into daily practices?
Two things. Thing number one is proximity. So I am a true believer that being polarizing is totally healthy and appropriate by pushing away unhealthy people, unhealthy habits, unhealthy conversations, pushing away drama and toxicity, and like the negative side to a positive side of a magnet. It is just ejected from the circumstances, while at the same time you're pulling in the positive people, the positive behaviors, the positive habits, and to be polarizing in your life, but allowing the core values to be the thing that says, I have high standards of expectations, and you either meet them or you don't. And if you don't, you get pushed out. If you do, you get pulled in. It's okay to edit and even delete relationships with people and circumstances and habits that are not serving you well, that are getting in the way from you achieving your fullest potential. I think that is the biggest thing is just to recognize that it's okay to be polarizing, and it's healthy to be polarizing as long as you're attracting and rejecting the right things, the right people, right habits. The other thing is, don't seek balance, right? You hear people talk about work-life balance. Mm-hmm. Well, balance is a net zero. In order for you to be balanced, all things are equal. And if you have big audacious goals, if you have things that you want to achieve, you cannot have balance in your life because you're not going forwards or backwards. Rather than trying to strike a balance in things, because if everything's a priority, nothing is a priority.
Yep,
Right?
exactly.
Nothing is a priority if everything is. So what you're looking to actually strike is work-life mix, to where when I'm doing jujitsu, me, my wife, and my son, we all train, we all compete in jujitsu.
Which is
I'm a
key. You're
purple
doing it
belt.
together. It's family time inside cool hobbies.
Correct,
Yes.
exactly. And so we show up together. My son goes to kids class, and my wife and I, we go and we watch. And when we go there, we go and we watch, right? And then when we train, we go and we train. She trains on one side, I train on another side, and we're 100% in. When we're doing jujitsu, we are doing 100% jujitsu. When we leave jujitsu and we come home and it's family time, it's time for dinner, it's 100% family time, right? When it's time for work, when you and I are connecting on these calls and I'm working with my coaching clients, it's 100% in that mode of, this is what I'm doing now. I'm 100% in. When we're doing the project, it's 75 hours long. We're 100% involved in this immersive experience of making these men better. And that's what I found to be my recipe for success, is to not strike work-life balance, strike work-life mix, where I do a tremendous amount of things with my family. I mean, we do just about everything together, but when we're doing these things together, sometimes we're having our own experiences within that, but we're 100% in, right? Just like jujitsu. When I'm in business, I'm 100% in. When I'm with friends, I'm 100% in. And that level of intentionality is something where you're not, everything's not a priority, just that thing is the priority. So it becomes a priority. And then when I shift gears, it's on to the next thing. And now I'm able to give my time and attention, my energy, my efforts, my contributions, my talents to that thing. And it's proven to work out very, very well.
Yes. And that right there, it seems so simple, so elementary, but at least as I'm observing the conditions of the world, it's becoming interestingly so rare and so difficult.
Yeah.
Yes, because we get addicted to the dings and the alerts and the notifications and the emails and all the endless entertainment. One doctor called it an unending stream of visual trash, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's coming from everywhere, but that intentionality of like, hey, if it's worth doing, I'm all in. Right now, this time, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard somebody say one time, you'd either be fully engaged or strategically disengaged. It's one or the other. You're not just like drifting around, whatever, half in, half out. It's awesome.
Yeah. When you say drifting, have you ever read the book Outwitting the Devil?
Yes.
It is for all of your listeners, highly, highly recommend it. I actually recommend it, listening to it, because the author is actually interviewing the devil, and he talks about drifters, right? He talks about how the devil, who really just represents all of the things that aren't in our best interest, and how those things deviate us from us reaching our fullest potential and tapping into really what we're made of. But how drifters are like the number one element to us not fulfilling what we're capable of, and fighting that temptation to drift is of the utmost importance.
Wow, it's huge. So cool. Yesterday, I just had a long conversation with one of my clients about Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a great book. It is.
Man, it makes me think of, there's this one scene in Dante's Inferno. And he talks about this hell, this special hell that's reserved for the uncommitted. And it makes me think that drifting or coasting, or just kind of being partway there.
Yeah.
There's a special kind of torment.
Yeah.
Even I would say in this life, right? For people who aren't in.
That's exactly what comes to mind is the number of people, and maybe people listening to this podcast right now, that they have this desire to be more, to have more, to give more, to earn more, to contribute more, and donate more. And they have this desire, but they just aren't. The reality is they just aren't. And and there's root causes that need to be dealt with, and there's issues that need to be addressed. But that is my version of a living hell for people to not be fulfilling what they're capable of and want to be. They want it, but they're not. That's just, to me,
that's torture.
That is torture. Yeah. Truly.
Yeah, you're so right, man. Just such a pain point there.
Yeah.
Wow. Any specific daily habits or practices, something insightful, like what time you get up, what time you go to bed, any routines that are maybe unique to you or you found have been super helpful?
I'm up at 4 a.m. So my wife, my son, myself were up 4 this morning. We were at the gym by 5 this morning. There's a Instagram story that I put of us like 5:05, and we're on the treadmills at the gym together.
Yeah.
We're all in, right? So every morning I get my workouts in. I know myself well enough to know that if I don't do it in the morning, it's not going to happen. Yeah. And so we work out in the morning. Come home, I intermittent fast, and then I'll start my day. My day starts at, between my role with the software company or my coaching clients is starting at 8 in the morning, and then we just get after it. So my schedule is very strict. I hired an executive assistant to help me manage it, to help me stay on track and make sure that I'm getting all the shit done that I need to. But I make sure that my day is wrapped up by no later than 5 o'clock. That's all business, everything. My calendar shuts off all business at 5 o'clock. I don't take a coaching call. I don't do anything business related. Now that our boy's back in school, we do evening class jujitsu. So last night we were doing jujitsu until 7:30 at night. Came home, ate dinner, had some downtime, some family time, and then we were up 4 a.m. at the gym. And so that's
not much downtime because you got to get in bed. You're getting up
at 4. We're in bed by 9:30. Yeah, we're in bed by 9:30.
I did 4 a.m. Almost 20 years.
Yeah,
I did that.
Yeah,
it's incredible what you can get done in the morning before other people can get up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. My wife, the season's starting to change here in Idaho, so not getting light as early and getting dark a little bit earlier, and so we were leaving the gym this morning, and we're leaving at 6, and it's still dark outside.
Yeah.
So
you leave the gym, it's still dark.
You're right. You're leaving the gym, it's still dark, and that's this is my 13-year-old son as well.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. One last question, man. What's something you are chasing? Just something you personally are hungry for right now. Just something that lights you up, lights your fire. You're going after.
I'm chasing a number of things. I'm chasing being the best husband out there, to be the best husband to my wife that I can absolutely be. I'm chasing being the best dad I can absolutely be. I'm running from the experiences that I had as a kid, and chasing opposite for my son. I'm chasing wealth. Wealth is something where a lot of people have unhealthy relationship to money. Exactly. And I would another thing I would really impress on your listeners is money is a vehicle to a lot of really important things. What people spend money on that makes them happy and provides security is up to them. But money is a vehicle. Money allows for me to have a substantial amount of money in the bank right now that has allowed for us to create our own economy. I don't pay attention to gas prices. I don't pay attention to this thing called inflation. I don't pay attention to these other things that unfortunately a lot of Americans and a lot of people around the world are really struggling with. But I live in America, and America is the greatest country in the world, right? And there's so much opportunity. Money has allowed for me to insulate and isolate myself from all kinds of circumstances that I have no control over. I can't control what the White House is doing. I can control what Russia, China, Ukraine, North Korea. I can't control what these other people are doing that are changing the outlook of our economy and this recession that we're in. But I can control the amount of money that I make that allows me to put my son in a private school that's a business school, an entrepreneur school for him. I can just not have any financial worries and any and a lot of time and money freedom, right? So I'm chasing wealth so I can provide the best insurances, the best experiences, the best opportunities. I can donate the most. I can give the most amount to charities and impact as many people as I can through helping in as many ways that I can. I'm chasing a legacy. I'm chasing to create this legacy to where many people will know my name for many years after I physically pass, and to have a positive impact on as many people as I can, and leave as big of a footprint on this world as I can. The work will never be done. There's never a point where I've arrived, and so I constantly am chasing this element of what I call blissful dissatisfaction, which is I am tremendously proud of the growth that I've experienced over the last 5 to 6 years. I'm tremendously proud of the relationship I now have with my wife and my son, and everything that we've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time, all things considered. But the dissatisfaction part is there's still so much work to be done. And so I can't take my foot off the gas pedal. I can't allow myself to start making compromises to my core values, or to allowing for people or circumstances or habits to come in to my ethers that are lower than my standards of expectations. I can't allow it because there's too much work to be done. And the day that I die, there will still be more work to be done. I still won't be the best leader, the best father, the best husband, the best contributor and protector and provider. So I'm chasing that. I'm just constantly chasing the wins because I'm either stacking those or I'm stacking losses, and I refuse to stack losses. Yeah. So that will exist from now until eternity.
Yes, exactly. My wife and I call that divine discontent. Celebrate where you came from, just keep on going. Yeah. And I know, you probably come across too. I come across men that are like, man, that sounds exhausting. Hearing you say, like, I'm chasing it to the end, and then I'm going to chase it on the next life, wherever that is. Like, I'm going. You're like, oh, can't I just stop and rest? But I'm with you. I have that hunger and that drive. Yeah. Well, and I love you pointed out, like, when we take care of our own economy, we don't have to worry so much about the economy. Yeah. Because our economy is in the right place. And same with our relationship and our health and our sovereignty, right? To get in.
And for the guys that would say that seems like a lot of work, what I would tell you is what's a lot of work is gaining the momentum. What was a lot of work was removing the mask, was eliminating the ego, was seeking out feedback and executing on that feedback. What was a lot of work was turning the corner from the person that I was to the person that I wanted to be. That was a lot of work. Now that the momentum is there, it's not a lot of work. It's fun. It is truly fun. When you get to this place, it's an exciting thing. I mean, it truly is. It's not nearly as much work as many people might think it is. Gaining momentum is a lot of work. Regaining it after you lose it is a lot of work. But when that spin wheel is flying, and you just keep doing the things that have been proven to be successful, and you keep having a high standard of expectations and keep following your North Star and keep your core values non-negotiable, it's not a lot of work. It's a lot of fun is what it is.
It's a lot of fun. It's dang fun to keep stacking wins.
It is.
I love it. All right, brother, where can people connect with you, man?
Instagram. I'm real prominent on Instagram. You can just find me at Matt Schneider _official. And then I've got a link tree with links to some of the things we talked about, the Squire program, the project, the coaching. So people can find me through that link. But Instagram is going to be the #1 way. Highly encourage anybody that has questions, wants some follow-up conversations, just throw it in the DM, and love to connect with anybody who's truly passionate about elevating their circumstances and willing to take action. I'll connect with them all day long.
Love it, brother. Thanks so much, man. Thanks for the legacy you're living, and for setting an example, for leading out and being a model. And thanks for being here, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. This was a lot of fun.